43.9 kilometres still left of this race to run, and the group containing Mark Cavendish now at 1 minute and 25 seconds as they have given up the ghost. But look who is driving the peloton along. It's Omega Pharma Quickstep for Tom Bonen. We've also had Katusha in here for Oscar Freire is up in this group as well. Heinrich Hausler is here. We know there are two riders from Garmin Barracuda. They haven't done anything so far. Haven't taken a turn on the front either, which would be interesting. This is Danilo Di Luca. Talking with teammates now, riding for Aqua and Sapone, of course. De Luca. Now, the interesting man, one of the other interesting men in this group, for me, is Pippo Pozzato, just relaxing in the middle of the group. Has won this race before. Pozzato would dearly love to again. I'm not at all sure he's got the form at the moment. But what about Gatto? He has been very fast indeed for quite a while, Oscar Gatto. Wearing 82 on his back. He's just ahead of George Hincapie here in the peloton, and the pace has slackened somewhat, Sean, for at the front here. There's Fabian Cancellara, 191, with the Swiss cross on the left-hand side. Two men ahead of him. It's slackened just a little bit. They don't need to drive it along so much now, Sean. They've got rid of Cavendish and that group behind without anybody else in it.
Yes, we can see there that it's much more grouped up front. We see Cancellara there, and news have filtered through that the Cavendish group have stopped riding, and the gap has grown out, and there's a little bit of a lull. I think it's a little bit of a calm before the storm, because we're getting real close to the storm now with 42 kilometres to go. It's just not going to last long, and you cannot relax here. That is the danger thing as well. If you concentration, drop it for a moment and start slipping back in this group, it's not the thing to do at all. You have to really stay up now in the top 20, 30 riders on the front of the bunch, because we're coming to the point where it's possible we could see a team, you know, just push up the pace again, and then you have to make the effort to get back in to the front of the bunch. So we're, you know, into that stage now where we're going into the final of this one with just over 40 kilometres to the finish.
Yep. Jan Umbrina, they're passing through. Will the weather have an effect as they get closer to the finish? It was very strong winds earlier today. Tailwind and side tailwind. There's Cheng Ji, who was in the break earlier today. Rode in Liège, Bastogne-Liège. When was it? 3 years ago now? 2009. I think the first Chinese rider to ride in one of the monuments was back in 2007 at Paris-Roubaix. Can't remember the name of the rider, actually. But having just seen the Tour de Taiwan, you can see that there's quite a lot of Chinese riders coming through at the moment. It'd be nice to see more in the peloton. I'm sure it will happen. 40.8 kilometres to go. Keep it all together, boys. Whoops, oh dear. Just could see that happening, couldn't you, really? Jumping back on Marcus Burkhardt at the back. Ooh. Oh dear. Having to chase back on, it's never a nice thing to have to do. And just a bit of a coming together, that concertinaing effect, Sean, just catching a couple of people out. Thankfully, no broken collarbones or any real problems, and sometimes those low-speed ones can be the worst. This is Berdos, who was in the breakaway, the 9-man breakaway that went away very early on. Got a maximum lead of 14 minutes or so. But his day is a run. He was already passed by the initial peloton, and then the second group has passed him also. 40 kilometres to go. Everybody taking opportunities if they need to get stuff from the cars. That is G once again. Looks like he's on water carrying duties now. There's Burkhardt working his way back through the cars. Well, the race has just settled just a little bit, Sean. Question is, how many of the big favourites have remained in this group? We know that the world champion Mark Cavendish is not in this group. He's in the second group on the road, along with a couple of other decent sprinters. But at the moment, Bonen will be here. Gilbert is in this group. Heinrich Hausler is in this group. Oscar Freire must be in this group. And it's all about Oscar Gatto, I think, is an outside chance today. It's all about being able to stay here now, and they'll be pleased that the pace is slackened somewhat.
Yes, it is slackened a bit, but still we can see the pace being set by the Omega Quick-Step rider. We're on this the Kappa Bert at the moment, which is about 39.6 kilometers to finish. So that's the point where we're going through, and from here on, the race really pushes on to get to the Suppressive, which is around 22 kilometers from the summit to the finish. So I don't think it's going to continue on to slow down for a long time. And all the big favourites, as we can see Cavendish here, he's the big loser today because he was the big favourite this morning. It was the big question: would he be able to get over the climb, the Suppressa and Poggio? But surprisingly, he didn't get to that at all, to get to that point. But the other big favourites, most of them are in there, as we've seen. Gus, I reckon he's in there. Peter Sagan, he has to be in there. So we can see Liquigas very much to the front there, and they have two cars to play in the final, because with Nibali, he is going to try and make the race more difficult, trying to get away on the Poggio, I would reckon, and that will also suit Sagan. The faster it is, the more difficult it is on the final climbs. I think Sagan will like that to get rid of the other sprinters.
Well, to be fair, we've not seen a rundown of exactly who's in that front group. We're just assuming from which teams are doing the work at the front at the moment. Paolo De Negri, who was in the original breakaway, as was the rider sitting next to him, Michael Morkov. Bonesi Vini clearly fancy their chances today, as do Omega Pharma Quick-Step. Actually, that's Burkhardt there. So I wonder if it was Van Hevermaet who went down at the back of the group. And although it's not going absolutely great guns at the moment, this race is always fascinating. And it's been the last couple of years that it's split into groups, two big groups. Didn't get back last year, the group that was tailed off, and at the same point as well. Different reasons, Sean, but at the same point on the course. Yes,
it's amazing, the same point that the race split, big split in the peloton, and it just proves that it was really very, very fast pace leading into that climb with the 90 kilometers to the finish, and it managed to split the group and put a lot of riders. It looked in the beginning there was only a small number of riders losing contact, but there was actually a big split which we see later on as we got to the summit of that climb, and it's eliminated some of the big favourites again this year.
It certainly has. 38.5 kilometers to go. A number of people tweeting in saying, if Cavendish is in the second group, pointing him out as one of the big losers today, slightly disparaging to the rest of the peloton. I can't say, well, he has managed. He has lost out today. He had. Obviously not in as good a shape as he would like to be, or he's having a bad day. That's the best thing to say about it, having a bad day. He's in good shape in Qatar, and it's just it's a loss for him that he can't stay up towards the front, towards the end of the race. The big losers, of course, are the whole team. He's very, very quick to praise the team. Always tremendously good at praising his team. Never heaps the blame on anybody else. if there's something wrong, but for sure he's a loser today, along with a number of other riders who've been caught in the second group. 36.5k. And the weather seems to be looking up a little bit than it was this morning. One of the big problems this morning was there was a tremendous wind whipping up the waves off the coast, nearly 2 meters high, 1.5 meters to 2 meters high the waves were earlier today, just throwing spray up over the hills just surrounding the finish. It could have been quite difficult on the Poggio, but it looks like it's calmed down just a little bit. The two big hills to go, the Suppressor and the Poggio. Towards the end of this race, we'll really see if this will split up once again, or we're going to end up with a massive bunch sprint. One would doubt it. I think they're quite pleased. It's just knocked off the pace here a little bit.
Yes, I think that is that's the situation. They've raced very fast in the earlier part of the race, and everybody's feeling the effects. Looking at the time, we're in the 42 average for the stage, and of course, they started at 10 o'clock this morning, so they're 6 hours done, and at the rate they were going at some of the points during the day, I think it's having an effect on some of the riders, and a little bit of recovery time before we really get into the real difficult part of this Milan San Remo. A number of riders happy just to get a breather, have something to eat, have something to drink, and once you get close to the Suppressor, well then it's going to be full on all the way to the finish.
Benati, Cancellara. In the middle of the group there, Fabian Cancellara. You can see Peter Sagan as well. 34 kilometers to go, and the sun is truly shining on Milan San Remo now. We've got another commercial break to take. Farnese Vini have been doing a lot of work here at the front, or at least they've had one man, Elia Favini, who's about as diametrically opposed in height to Stan Vandenberg you could possibly get. And they've been on the front. Mark Cavendish's group, which valiantly attempted to get back a monster ride by Sky, mainly by Matt Heyman, certainly on our screens anyway, to bring Cavendish back. It's just looked as though he was suffering a little too much, and they've thrown in the towel on the chase. It's now 4 minutes and 50 seconds. The winner will come from this front group now. Tom Bonan is in the group, Gilbert is in the group, Peter Sagan is in this group. You'd have to guess that Gatto is in this group, Sean, because Farnese Vini are working, or Pizzato could be there.
Yes.
Haven't really seen them, to be honest.
No, we haven't seen, but there's so many riders we haven't seen for the moment, and I think the ones you mentioned who missed out on this one, that's the way to pick out the favourites. All the other ones I reckon are in here. We can see Rabobank there; they seem to be riding together. Breschel, of course, he must be in there. We can see Radio Shack, Nissan, they're also staying together. Cancellara, Benatti, we see there. A lot of the big favourites are starting just to start to appear on our screens, and I think we will see more and more as we get to the Suppressor. That's where we'll see the big favourites, and they will be moving into that top 20, 25 riders. As we can see here, what have we got? 60, 70 riders, a big group of riders still to pick out the big favourites, because they are just waiting and playing the waiting game. The ones with the experience are not going to show themselves until we get onto the Suppresso. That will be the earliest point we will see them.
It's not always the case that you see the big favourites appear, though. I mean, just think back a couple of years to Oscar Freira's win in 2010. He just didn't appear, just appeared from nowhere, Sean, in that last 200 metres. Didn't see him at all.
Well,
sort of a tiny bit, I think, of the beginning of the Poggio, but really nothing on our screens.
Yes, on the Poggio you can see him there in the distance, in the slipstream of that first 10 or 12 riders, and that's what we could see him doing again today. And he's the specialist in doing that. I think the likes of Cancellara, he is the one maybe will try something a bit more. From Liquigas Nibali, he will definitely try and go in the attack as well. So it depends on what your capabilities are. If you're a real good sprinter like Ferreira, and he knows if he can get over this one in the top 15 riders, then he's in with a great chance of winning, because the other favourites will have difficulty staying up there. And that is the way you work your tactic, depending on what your strong point is. You work to that, and some of the experienced ones we have got in here, they can do it so well. They've done it before many times.
Yep, they have. On the sort of slightly left field front, Sean, who do you think, we're still in this group that we can see anyway, like Daniel De Luca is pedaling around like mad to try and stay in there. He's clearly suffering. Left field riders who may well feature here. But Breschel is a good example. I mean, he's very talented, but he's sort of dogged by injury in one way or another. But he seems to be up here.
Yes, well, I think he will be very much up here. Is he in good enough shape to get over the final climbs and the Poggio? That is the one where the real killer is, because the speed will be just that bit higher again than it will be on the Suppressor. And there's a lot of riders like that, and I think you can go down through the list. As I said, with the Radio Shack, Benatti is another one who's going to be very much up there. Lorso Greipel, can he make it over? That will be his objective as well. That will be his plan. Just stay there, try and stay in contention, and if he can just make it over the top of the Poggio with the leading group, well, then he's another one who is so fast and just so good in that sprint.
Yeah, he is. It's all about getting over that last climb of the day, and not just getting up on it, but getting over the top and down the other side, Sean. As you've proved yourself, if you've got nerves of steel and can descend really quickly, then you can make up a lot of time. Get yourself in a position at the bottom where you can go for the win, because it's not that far from the bottom of the Poggio to the finish line.
No, well, from the bottom of the Poggio, you have to be in a real good position, and if you're in a group and you're back a long ways, you make that effort to move up, and that's something you pay for in the final sprint. But again, I think we will see, normally, depending on the wind situation as well, if it's a tailwind, which we think it is on the Poggio, on most of it, of course, it does turn a bit where you will get a little bit on the side. If that is the case, well, it will climb very, very fast. Then they will go that much faster again, as we can see here now, a lot of movement, and we see Oscar appearing in our screen.
Oscar Ferreira looking at the rear wheel of Philippe Gilbert. The hurt is being put on here because we're not very far from the Suppressor. It's Valerio Agnoli at the front. Once again, he did a bit of work earlier on the last of the big climbs that really killed off Cavendish and a number of other sprinters. And here we go. Here comes the Suppressor as Agnoli sticks it to them into the corner. And BMC were very keen to get into it quickly. Kinziato was leading Alessandro Ballan to get there, and we're starting to kick up. Gilbert is looking in a very good position, and Ferreira didn't want to let him get away. Oscar Ferreira, we saw him for the first time on our screens in the wheel of Philippe Gilbert. Also two Radio Shack Nissan riders just behind Philippe Gilbert following. Cancellara won't be far behind. Fabian Cancellara just eating his way up on the right-hand side of your screen now. You can see he's looking over the shoulders of a few riders. About 25 back at the moment. He's not far off Bonan's wheel. There he is in the middle of your shot. It's an interesting situation as we come into the closing stages of Milan San Remo. Nibali is in good shape. Ballan is leading the BMC boys at the moment, with Philippe Gilbert looking more comfortable than perhaps would have expected here. Just keeping the pace high enough to get over the Suppressor. Not really going great guns at the moment. Who will drop off the back? De Luca had been suffering. Daniel Oss is the man second in line. for Liquigas. At this moment, Sean, just looking at the riders, just judging where they're positioning themselves, when they're appearing, when they're not appearing, how their faces look, have you any gut feelings about who's looking really good for this today?
Well, I think it's an impossible test to see who's really looking good. If you're a rider and you're down there in that group and you have some of the bigger favourites in front of you, that's where you can see immediately, and you know the rider so well, you can see who's going well and who's starting to suffer a bit. And you know, we can see all the big favourites there. We see Gilbert starting to move up, Cancellara there, we can see Nibali, he's sitting there, and you know, his team is making the pace at the moment. Will there be somebody throwing an attack as we get to this 26 kilometres to go, and the summit of this one, the Cipressa, is 22 kilometres, just a fraction over, so there is time for the attacks. And no, we do see somebody having a go here, but if you allow the Liquigas team to continue on setting this pace, well then with a rider like Nibali, if he makes a descent off the Cipressa here, he's going to cause a lot of problems. And as we know, the Cipressa, it's always a dangerous descent, and we've seen a lot of falls on the downhill there, and you know, that's something they have to be careful that, you know, you have to keep your eye on Nibali, because he is such a great descender.
Yep, there's some nervous riders here as they go up the Cipressa. And Yoli doing the work at the moment, but there's some very good descenders in here as well. Remember, Cancellara is in here, and Yoli pushes the pace on the Cipressa just a little bit harder. But lots of riders looking around them to see who is there, wanting to position themselves. Jaroslav Popovic looking to see where his team leader, Fabian Cancellara, winner of this race once before, of course. Cancellara back in 2008 sprung a surprise at that point by really sort of hammering it with about 1.1 kilometres to go and just taking off. And once he gets head of steam up, it's almost impossible to get him back. That looks good for Tom Bonen at the moment there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 back. But look at the way Liquigas want to control this at the moment. They have Peter Sagan as well, remember. Here, Nibali's in third spot, behind Daniel Oss. He could make a push on the descent of the Cipressa, but I tell you what though, Sean, Sagan and he looked to be as though they were at loggerheads during the early stages of Tirreno Adriatico, but there was a big sort of public love-in towards the end, wasn't there? And Sagan certainly throttled off. He perhaps realised that he's going to need all the help he can get on this big monument.
Yes, and I think as the Tirreno went on, things were getting better within the camp of Liquigas. Sagan, he did a tremendous amount of work. I think it was the penultimate stage where he kept the pace very high. Joaquim Rodriguez went in the attack, and he just kept the pace real high, and Nibali picked up some very valuable bonifications, taking second place on the stage. And I think it was the overall win then that solved everything, and everybody was happy within the camp. And it'll be interesting today to see what the tactic will be. I think Sagan is just going to follow and stay with the other big favourites, and Nibali will just, you know, do his own race and try and go on the Poggio.
Whoop. Attack being launched off the front. Once again, it is Utensil Nord-Named who've really decided, well, we get not too much out of this, so I'm going to go whilst I can. Liquigas won't be too worried about that. And Yoli just setting the pace. And they're happy to control. Another rider from Utensil Nord coming up here. They have Belletti and Bossisio Baggio. No, it isn't. I tell a lie. It's Vacon Soleil. And let's have a wild guess who that might be from the style, shall we? Johnny Hoogerland. A lot of Hoogerland fans out today saying, I go for Johnny Hoogerland today. This is the sort of thing that Hoogerland has got to do, though, Sean, because in a sprint, he probably doesn't stand too much of a chance against a rider like a Bonin or an Oscar Ferreira or even a Gilbert here.
No, I think he knows that if he waits for the Poggio, when it really starts to race very, very fast, he's not capable of staying with the big guys and try and go that bit further out. And he's that sort of rider as well. He's a very aggressive rider, and we've seen him like in different races, one-day races, also stage races. That is his style of riding.
Pace Villa is the man from Utensil Nord. Rode for many years for Lampre, but he's got that bobbing head style that goes backwards and forwards. I thought Pace Villa retired for a while. I'm sure he retired for a bit. He's back anyway. He always sports a tiny pencil-thin goatee as well. It has done for the last few years, and there's a lot of riders now thinking, well, maybe if a little break is going to go, then I try and get across to it. Hugeland is a good man to have in a break, as we know. And Movistar this time deciding I'm going to push the pace on just a little bit more to see if I can get away. It's Rui Costa, the Portuguese rider. Still everything pretty much in control for the peloton. Now two leading riders. Hugeland got himself so many fans during last year's Tour de France, and Pace Villa behind him, and Hugeland possibly we could do well to slow down a little bit, Sean, and wait and work with Pace Villa.
Well,
it's a difficult one to call, that one.
Yeah, well, it's a difficult one if you go here and get down the descent of the Cipressa, and between that and the Poggio, there's that flat section which is very difficult. With two men to share that pace up front, it would be a big advantage. On your own, it's going to be an impossible task. With two, you might have some chance of staying away for a longer time and get maybe to the Poggio. And we can see there's no reaction out of the bunch at the moment, but still 2 kilometres from the summit of the Cipressa, and it's slower than normal. Normally in the Cipressa it goes at a very, very fast pace. Here, the bunch is not going anything like we have seen sometimes in the past. And what is the reason? Maybe the race, and we have had the aggressive racing earlier on. Everybody is just a little bit tired and afraid to start racing that little too early.
Yeah, could well have been. Now it's Omega Pharma Quick Step setting the peloton pace. As Hugeland and Villa made their own little attack. 11 seconds of a gap they've got at the moment, and I'm afraid unfortunately Rui Costa is not getting much further down the road. 23.4 kilometres to go. There's still a fair way to go to the top, or what, kilometre and a bit to go to the top of the Cipressa before they plunge down the coast again. Well, he's going for it. There's nothing if not entertaining, is he, is Johnny Hugeland. He's always an aggressive rider. He's made huge amounts of fans, Sean, for this sort of aggressive attacking style.
Yes, he's an aggressive, a big aggressive rider, and that's something that the fans like. We've seen it in the past, with other riders as well. They have a very big following. The cycling fans, they love that, and he has to really give it everything here. Get to the summit here, make the descent, and see what happens behind. If there's other riders maybe come across on the descent, that would be something as well that Hugeland.
Oh no! Oh dear! Oh, Gilbert's on the floor. Oh my word, Philippe Gilbert, and who else is tangled up there? One of the riders from Euskaltel. That's a nightmare. That's an absolute nightmare for Philippe Gilbert. And everybody else down on the floor. Oh dear. Jelle van den Dert is the rider hobbling around from Lotto.
Vladimir Gusev.
Yeah, Gusev. Yeah, Katusha at the back. Gusev with his helmet on the back of his head now. And how on earth did that happen? Gilbert is usually so good, Sean, at avoiding that sort of stuff, and just in completely the wrong place and caught out here.
Yes, and I think again we're getting to the point, just at the top of the suppressor, and everybody just want to get into a good position to make the descent, and difficult to see exactly where it happened. But we did see Gilbert. He was very much to the front earlier on, a number of kilometres back down the climb here. So I reckon it was right up on the front of the bunch it happened.
Yeah, it looks like it. De Luca and Riblon, the two riders who just slowed up there a little bit. Of course, De Luca looked in, he was hanging on for grim death anyway. What happens to Gilbert here? Well, he seems to be just touring around at the moment, Sean.
Direct road to the showers.
Maybe. Dear, oh dear.
Impossible to get back in here because, with the descent now, it's just going to really go fast, and I cannot see Gilbert making it in. And if you do have to make the effort to get back to the tail end of the group, then make your way to the front, you're going to always pay for that on the final climb of Poggio.
Oh dear.
It's Milan San Remo.
Yes, certainly is the longest single day race in the calendar. The first of the monuments here. Over 300 kilometers of riding, 298 kilometers of racing. And Pachevilla is really ragging it out here on the descent of the Cipressa, along with Johnny Hoogeland. And well, it was Pachevilla who got away, spent some time in the sin bin, one has to say, after a positive test at Lampre when he was riding, and then did announce his retirement. Thanks for reminding me of that. I can't remember if it was Ardilas Subiras reminding me. So I'm sure he'd retired. And here he is again. He's descending pretty quick, one has to say, and there's another rider coming across to them at the moment. Pachevilla, looking back over his shoulder, there's a rider from Radio Shack Nissan and from Liquigas here. Now, are they foot soldiers sent out to keep these guys back, or are they the big guns? Strung out here on the descent of the Cipressa. Men who can descend like a stone from those two particular teams are, of course, Fabian Cancellara and Vincenzo Nibali, but we will just have to see. I've got a feeling it might be Benatti who's been sent on. Look at the driving to bring back Pachevilla. They're not going to keep this one quiet, Sean. Away they go. Looks like Jaroslav Popovic and Yoli in his wheel tracks, and then they're just driving it onshore. It's going to be a Liquigas Nissan Trek fight, this one. Cancellara just sitting in there.
Yes, you can see Cancellara there, and a group of 12, 15 riders, and a little bit of a split there. Bonin is in there. Every little bit counts here. The riders who have missed it, it's interesting to see now who is going to close down, but the bunch just at 15 to 20 metres off that group of Cancellara.
Maybe Fabian just realising it's a little bit too early, testing his legs, seeing how well he's going, but no problems for Tom Bonin in staying on the wheel of him. Looking good for Bonin at the moment. A number of other riders missing out. We know that Philippe Gilbert has already gone down. Cancellara coming back to the front of this group, so presumably there were a couple of riders further down the road. Rui Costa is being taken back. And just sitting quietly in second now, Fabian Cancellara, being towed along. He's got the bit between his teeth. He looked fantastic in Strade Bianche, Sean. He just rode away from everybody.
Yes, he was very impressive in the final, and just rode away on one of the short steep hills, and time trial, out there on his own. A number of riders, there was about 4 riders chasing, 4 or 5 riders chasing, and just were not able to pull him back, and that just tells how strong the guy is. And you cannot allow him to take 10-20 metres. Very, very difficult to close him down when he gets that sort of advantage.
I think Tom Bonan looks surprisingly good then, and very, very on the ball.
Well, I think for Bonan, the suppressor we see there, it wasn't very aggressive. There were not, real attacks earlier on, and the pace was pretty steady, being set by the liquid gas team. So that would suit Bonan, and the descent, he can descend very well, as Cancellara can do, and a lot of the other ones. So to come across there, it's not surprising to see Bonan there. But still, he is, in a real good position at the moment. Now it's all going to be, on the Poggio where the race is going to be decided, and that's where we'll see the real strong men, because suppressor, for me, it wasn't a real test to see who was in good shape.
Nervous with 9 kilometres to go now to the Poggio. This is the scene of where, well, it's all be all played out on the Poggio. The question is, will somebody take a flyer up it? I've got a feeling Fabian is looking that way. He just looks so calm. In time trial mode at the moment, it's Farnese, Vini who are pushing along. Fiali, once again, he's been towards the front quite a bit. It was interesting that Peter Sagan just sitting in there. He's now got Daniel Oss for company, and Oss is clearly in very good form, Sean, because he was quite happy to sit at the front with Fabian Cancellara. I think Oss is a very underrated rider, actually, and he does an awful lot for other guys, but he's very strong. He's good in a breakaway. He can climb pretty well for a fast man, and he's got a very fast sprint. And if he's looking after Peter Sagan, that's good for Sagan. I mean, he could have done a ride in his own right, I reckon, the way he's going today.
Yes, well, he's doing a ride at the moment, keeping the pace real high here, and again, that is, you have to, make a calculation and sacrifice some of the riders who maybe could do a place in the race in the top 10, but that's not what the teams are thinking about. They're all thinking about, getting the win here. That's of all importance. We see BMC here, we see Hincapie, who is moving up there with Alexandre Ballan. So it's, all about positioning now as we get just so close to the Poggio.
Yeah, Ballan too looking not too bad. Too shabby in Strada Bianchi, but even so, he wasn't a match for Spartacus, one has to say. Bram Tankink is bringing Rabobank up towards the front. See much of Breschel. And is that Greg Van Avermaet sitting there? It looks like it is. One of my outside choices today, Greg Van Avermaet. The guys were asking early on, who did you reckon for today? It was Oscar Freire, Peter Sagan, Fabian Cancellara, Greg Van Avermaet, Oscar Gatto. So that's were my choices to be contending for the final. I have to say, probably quite lightly dismissed Tom Bonan, who's looking very good at the moment. He would dearly, dearly love to win this one, Sean, wouldn't he?
Well, yes, he certainly would, and he's been close before on the podium, and to win this one would be a magnificent start to any of the big favourites like Bonan to be on the top step of the podium here and going into the next classics. It just makes it so easy from here on. It just relaxes the team, yourself. You have a big classic under your belt, and then you can do so well in the other classics, because the confidence will be just rocket high.
There are a couple of riders who are still lurking in there we've not even mentioned at all. Edvald Bosenhagen, Sean, in the middle of the group. He seems to, just slightly towards the back at the moment, but again, one of these riders who we've not seen anything of at the moment. Visconti, I can see there, the Italian national champion. Again, another man we've seen nothing of at the moment. Surely will get up towards the front for the Poggio. This is Milan San Remo, the longest race in the calendar. Over 300 kilometers in the saddle, 298 officially of those are racing miles. But they roll out of Milan early on the day. And this is the final. 12 kilometers to go with just the Poggio separating one of these men from victory in one of the greatest races in the world. There's Giovanni Visconti, number 151 in the Italian champions jersey in the middle of your screen at the moment. He's got Greg van Avermaet from BMC just in his wheel. Sasha Modolo is also in here just ahead of Visconti. Modolo has had a very good Milan San Remo record so far, and interesting to see Lars Bohm still up here as well. There he is in the back, 181. There's some very big hitters in here, Sean. Peter Sagan from Liquigas up towards the front, being shepherded by Daniel Oss. Cancellara is in here. Edvald Boasson-Hagen must be in here. We haven't seen him at all, but he's a rider running just slightly towards the back of the group here at the moment. That's nothing to worry about just at this moment. And still hanging in there, Matt Goss, look. In the middle of your screen, last year's winner, Matt Goss, has managed to keep himself in this group, and he's got, I think, Langeveld just behind him to help. He's not been in the best of shape so far, but it's amazing how you can lift yourself for something you really, really want, Sean.
Yes, and it will be interesting to see now, can he make the move to get close to the front, because we're coming to the point where we're going on to the Poggio, the final climb of the day, and you cannot sit back here on the rear end of this group, although it is quite a small group. We see also Boasson-Hagen with a teammate there from Sky, very much at the rear as well, but you know, you can do that and just make the effort just before the Poggio and get yourself into that top 15 riders, because if splits occur, you know, you're going to have to put in a lot of effort to get across. So in the top 15 is the place to be, and the riders are hanging the rear. I'd be concerned that they're starting to suffer and, you know, feeling the effects of the hard race and the long distance, as you say.
It's Rabobank doing the work on the front. Matti Breschel is the man they'll be working for, I'm sure, although Bohm is still in here as well. 183 on the back of Matti Breschel.
Is that Renshaw?
It looks like Renshaw.
Yes, it does.
Mark Renshaw, 186, is the last man in the group. And De Luca off the back at the moment. He was held up by the crash that brought down Philippe Gilbert. BMC deciding not to ride as they get onto it. This is it now. Sean, this is the Poggio. What do they do? Well,
what do you do? It depends on what your tactic is within the team, who you've got in your team, and if you have got sprinters, well, then you try and just keep the pace high, not to allow the other riders to attack. But as we can see here, immediately on the Poggio.
Agnoli, yeah. Gosh, that's a big attack. Valerio Agnoli looks over his shoulder and sees if anybody is going to react here. Whoa, almost overcooks the corner.
On the uphill.
On the uphill, yeah. Even you didn't manage that. Well, Agnoli's been set out there as the hare. He's forcing other riders from other teams to do the chasing work. For Peter Sagan and Vincenzo Nibali, that's a perfect situation. As Tanking looks over his shoulder, seeing if anybody's coming with him. I think he thought perhaps that Nibali would go with him. But Agnoli has put the hammer down. He's a very fine climber, Agnoli. And this will make every other team, Sean, have to chase, and that's great for Liquigas.
Yes, and the question is, what is the tactic here? With Agnoli up front, will we see somebody else in the Liquigas trying to get across? But, you know, there's more action coming out, as we can see. A Movistar rider starting to push on here. And Rabobank just continuing on, making a very fast pace.
As always, we see one or two riders trying to get away, and Valerio Agnoli has not got a gap enough, as Rabobank doing a very fine job in pacing the peloton. Movistar trying to get across here as well. Tucks in behind, does Agnoli. You can look over his shoulder as much as you like. Flick the arm, please come through and help us. I think they're all on the rivet anyway. Not much help coming from Agnoli now, having launched the attack. 8.7 kilometres to go. Good job by Rabobank here. Of course, that's helping everybody else at the moment. Cancellara just looking very calm in the middle of that group at 1, 2, 3, 4 back. Where is Oscar Freire? Freire, who's done this so often, just sat in the group and then is capable of being pulled back really towards the end. It's Madroso, Angel Madroso, who has gone away with Valerio Agnoli. They're not getting much of an advantage here. You have to be strong to ride away on this. Do you think the general fitness of the peloton is better than now than it was in your day, Sean?
Yes, I think you have more riders from teams here able to control the pace, and you can see there at the Rabobank, you know, they had 2 riders who were riding on the front, and the gap is not growing out very quickly for the Movistar rider, and I think, you know, again, as we get further up here, there's going to be more attacks. There has to be riders who want to try and just get away here as we go through the 9 kilometres to go.
Oh, brave move by Angel Madrazo. He's found himself in the front group. He's found himself in decent shape, and he's gone for it today. It's about all he can do. We saw Van Avermaet attack here last year. I remember it was the descent here, Sean, was it last year, where Oscar Freire crashed, overshot a corner. Or was that the year before? I can't remember.
Yes, I think it was the year before. Yes, because Freire, he had the crash in the earlier part.
It can't be the year before he won it.
On the descent, so I don't think he was in this leading group last year.
Oh, no, sorry, they broke away last year. It must have been 3 years ago then, when Cavendish won. Matt Goss still hanging in here, look. At the back, sort of knees out style, pumping at the bars. Last year's winner, Matt Goss, for Green Edge. Wouldn't that be a tremendous win for them if you could get anywhere near the front? He just seems to be hanging in at the moment. Another attack going off the front of the group. Valerio Agnoli is the man to aim for. And this looks like Hugeland again, Sean.
Yes, that looks very like his style once again.
Johnny Hugeland has put the cat amongst the pigeons. I think there'll be a little bit more concern about Hugeland going away, and this is it. Now some response coming. Oh, look at this. Around the outside. With Simon Gerrans and Vincenzo Nibali. Madrazo is being dragged back. Pedal stroke by pedal stroke as Johnny Hugeland goes, and straight the way past him goes Vincenzo Nibali with Simon Gerrans in his wheel tracks. Brilliant ride by Gerrans. Fantastic. And this is causing more problems, and Cancellara having to respond and getting into the wheel tracks of Simon Gerrans. He knows that is a man, and with Vincenzo Nibali as well. This is the attack, Sean, the real one.
Yes, well, we can see Nibali pushing in a big attack there, and Gerrans, you know, following very well. Cancellara coming across very strong, and you know, taking up the pace at the moment. And this is going to be a dangerous group unless somebody can react. Are they capable of doing? Because the gap is growing out very quickly here. We can see there at what, 45, 50 metres of advantage.
They have to close this one down because the 2 best descenders in the professional peloton are in this front group. Fabian Cancellara and Vincenzo Nibali, and Gerrans is no slouch either. In the sprint, you'd have to pick Gerrans if they got to the line together, but I doubt that's going to happen the way this is going. And Gerrans has really got to hang tough on this one. The Australian national champion has Vincenzo Nibali in his wheel. And it was Matti Brecel and Oscar Freire, I think, who were doing the chasing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 behind. And here we go. This is the descent. Both Nibali and Cancellara can go downhill like a stone. And it's Katusha doing the chasing. Brecel, I think, is out of it at the moment. And Freire is having to come back at this one. This is a difficult one for Zag, and he just follows the wheel, I think, of Freire if he possibly can. He's still not got too much of a gap. But I wouldn't put it that you're going to have to go really, really well to keep these guys in check.
Yes, and 4 or 5 seconds an advantage, I make it. But again, we can see the Katusha rider on the front, and he is going to give it everything. If he's a good ascender, well then he can keep this gap to the minimum. But with Cancellara on the front, as you say, he can descend real fast. But they need to take out 10-12 seconds before they get to the bottom of the Poggio. Otherwise, this group is very big. We can see there's at least 7 or 8 riders chasing, and then a group of riders just a little bit further back. So it's going to be a difficult one for our 3 leaders to hold off.
Cancellara just easing off the pedals a little bit as they get to the corner here. Nibali looks to be the one who's having a little bit more trouble hanging in with them at the moment. There's great riding by Katusha. Look at this, 2 men, they're coming around them. I don't think they've got enough at the moment, but Cancellara, of course, can just ride away if he wants to in time trial mode. The 2 best descenders in the professional peloton, and Gerrans is going brilliantly as well here. 5 kilometers to go. Cancellara right behind the motorcycle, taking as much advantage of that as he possibly can. There's a true professional for you. Look at Sagan. Peter Sagan, 3rd in this little group here. Chasing. He can't chase hard, though, because he's got Vincenzo Nibali up ahead. Liquigas in a super position. If Spartacus falls by the wayside, pedaling out of the corner, and Gerrans, I've got to say, is doing a fantastic job to stay with Fabien Cancellara. They still haven't got enough, Sean. Look, Sagan is still following.
Yes, well, Sagan is just going to sit there and just make the Katusha rider do the chasing. Simon Gerrans in a great position here, because when they get down to the flat run in the final kilometres, he's going to play the game. He's riding for Gus, and he will just try and get carried along as much as possible, and it's going to be Cancellara and Nibali who's going to have to do the riding. I would be surprised if we see Simon Gerrans doing a lot, contributing a lot to the pace setting.
Nope, none at all, I would imagine. 3.8 kilometres to go. The gap is there, but it's not substantial at the moment, and it's Oscar Freire and the Katusha team been chasing as hard as they possibly can to try and get back on this. Hardly a gap at all. That must be Freire. We've not seen him close up, but I can't think of anybody else who would be chasing as hard in a red Katusha jersey. And Peter Sagan just happy to sit in the wheel.
Cancellara's pulling away from the other 2.
He's just got his head down and he's trying to ride as hard as possible. Gerrans has done a magnificent job to hang in there so far. Nibali looks a little off the sharpest of the descending we've seen him. Maybe he's just keeping something in reserve. Three kilometers to go in this longest of races in the calendar. The sun is now shining, the wind has dropped slightly, and it's become less of a problem for these riders. Gerrans second here. Oh, they're slowing down now as they come in towards the finish. Well, they can't afford to play cat and mouse, so they're both going to sit. Nibali and Gerrans are going to sit on Fabien Cancellara. He's going to time trial it towards the end. There's not enough gap for them to start playing cat and mouse. Freire and Peter Sagan are just behind. There's Freire's team. Sagan, and is that Degenkolb who's in there as well? That's magnificent riding by Degenkolb. 12 seconds they've got. Cancellara has got his head down, the 4-time world time trial champion. Gerrans in a magnificent position. Simon Gerrans has done so well this year. He's come into this Green Edge team with the national champions jersey of Australia on board. And this is the chasing bunch. And it's Katusha being left to do all the work. And where is Van? I think Van Avermaet is in there as well from BMC. 1.8 kilometres to go. Oh, that's the train you want to be in. Gerrans looks to see where Nibali is, and he's not. He's coming forward, doing a little bit of work here, but not much. He needs to keep it going. He's got to take some sort of turn. Nibali is just sitting there, Sean.
Yes, Nibali is sitting, and surprising that I thought he would be the one that would maybe take a pull on the front, but it's Gerrans who is doing it at the moment. And the advantage we see there, 12 seconds, the last one, is coming down a bit, but still they have quite a nice advantage, with Cancellara really keeping it going and pushing on big time.
He's the man you want, isn't he? If you want to keep it going, And have the descent as well as Fabian Cancellara. You would have Simon Gerrans, for me, in the best position here at the moment. Nibali's going to try and spring one. That's for sure. Sprinting is, well, it's all right, but, you know, it's not a patch on Gerrans, who is pretty quick from this small group. Mind you, so is Cancellara. Under the 1 kilometre to go banner. 3 men have taken the fight to the rest of the group on the Poggio. It's Cancellara, Gerrans, who eases off the pedals. Cancellara just weaving slightly. Surely Nibali will take a flyer at this one. I don't think Gerrans is going to let it get too far because they're dragging them back. Looks over his shoulder, Fabian Cancellara, not the position he would like to be in, but he's always going to be a marked man for this sort of thing. Around the last bends for our leading trio, and here come Katusha. Hunting them down. Will Oscar get to them in time? It's so close. They're into the final 200 meters or so, and they're looking behind the chase group. You can't do that. You're never going to get them back. Cancellara still the man pulling along. Gerrans is in the best position. My money's on him, if anybody. Van Avermaet winds up from behind on the left-hand side. Sagan has it covered. Here comes Degenkolb. Degenkolb is leading this chasing sprint out, but I don't think they're going to make it. Simon Gerrans on the left-hand side is going to win, surely. Gerrans takes it. Simon Gerrans takes a monument win. 2 in a row for Australia and the Australian national champion. He missed out in Paris-Nice, banging the bars wildly as Valverde won in an uphill sprint. But you know what? He won't care about that whatsoever now. He has won one of the biggest races of the year, Milan San Remo. That is a marvellous victory. And he stayed with Fabian Cancellara on the descent. I've got to say that it was a wonderful piece of descending, and he got across. He saw the move go by Hoogeland. And as Cancellara reacted, Simon Gerrans went with it. There's a crash on the final corner. And looks like a sky bike on the floor. It may be a Bianchi, I'm not quite sure. Simon Gerrans, 2 in a row for Australia. Not Matt Goss this time around, who I have to say admirably hung in there. But Simon Gerrans, the Australian national champion, brilliant win. And they didn't have a big enough gap for Cancellara to just ride away. Look at the way Degenkolb is driving for the line. Sagan can see that and goes around the outside of him, but Nibali clearly not in the form. I thought he was going to spring one, just didn't have the legs. Gerrans takes it on the line ahead of Fabian Cancellara. Cancellara won this race back in 2008, remember, but that's a great sprint. Sagan the best of the rest. Oh, we're going down. Is that Bonin going down?
It has to be.
It has to be Bonin, who went down in the corner, and that was a heavy crash by Tom Bonin. Sagan coming around the outside of John Degenkolb. Ooh, ouch. That's gotta hurt. Well, all the work done by Rabobank for Matti Breschel. In the end, Breschel and Renshaw didn't quite have the legs. And a great win for the Australian. Simon Gerrans. That'll be very popular for everybody. Daniel Lloyd will be out there doing some interviews for the for RCS. And Rai, the host broadcasters, in just a second. Daniel, expert commentator here on Eurosport as well now, but Gerrans is being absolutely mobbed. I mean, it means a huge amount to the Italians, this race, doesn't it?
Well, it's a big, it's the race of the season for the Italians from the classic point of view, and you know, they're always up for it. And but what a ride by Simon Gerrans. Nibali finishing third, Sagan finishing fourth, so he won the sprint.
Oh, that doesn't look like Bonin. Oh, very nasty. Degenkolb looks over his shoulder, and Sagan there. Bernati was in this group as well. Pozzato you can see in the chasing group. Nibali didn't have it in the legs. Good finish by Degenkolb. He's certainly coming good. Wonderful win by Simon Gerrans. He's finally found the monument he has been craving. Well, such a strong all-round rider, Sean, but I wouldn't have predicted him today for a win. Maybe I should have, or maybe we should have, but he's certainly been on good form. He was good in Paris-Nice.
Yes, he wasn't good in Paris-Nice, but again, you know, he was one of the ones who you would maybe pick as one of the outsiders, and was very impressive when Nibali went in the attack on the Poggio. Gerrans there was with Cancellara very quickly, and they had the best man you could have up front in Cancellara to keep the pace high.
Terrific ride by Simon Gerrans, another great win. Remember, it's not... It's no stop for us now here on Eurosport. Now the season started. This is the home of cycling. Eurosport International and British Eurosport, the home of cycling. Remember, Tour of Catalonia starts on Monday, 3 p.m. GMT live on British Eurosport. Remember, Bradley Wiggins riding in Catalonia. This has been a wonderful Milan San Remo finish once again. And Simon Gerrans takes the win. 2 Australians in a row. Brilliant finish. Vincenzo Nibali, well, it looked at for just a moment there, Sean, as though he might try and wind up and do something, but he just didn't quite have the legs. Tirreno clearly probably taken something out of him last week.
Well, of course, he had to battle to the very end in Tirreno in the time trial, so the recovery time that little bit less than some of the other riders maybe. But Cancellara as well, he was very much up for the time trial. Yeah, I think the pace was just that too high. Cancellara kept at just a real fast pace, and he was making the calculation in the last couple of 100 metres. He's looking behind, but Simon Gerrans, you know, he was very impressive and rode it very tactically. And you know, with Cancellara, when he is keeping it going up front, you're in a perfect position, and it's all about being able to go with them on the Poggio.
Yeah.
No, ma stavo bene, ho fatto bene le manine.
Difficult finish for some of these riders.
Anche l'ho fatta bene, purtroppo sono caduti.
And Simon Gerrans takes a monument. He's been there or thereabouts for the last 4 years, really, Sean, and this is a massive milestone in your career.
Yes, well, this is, you know, the biggest victory of his career, and to win the Milan San Remo, as I said, you know, to start out with the classics. And Gerrans is a rider who you would see maybe in the other more hillier classics as well, like a Liège-Bastogne-Liège or an Amstel Gold, for example. So, you know, winning this one is going to give a huge boost of confidence to him. And for the team, Green Edge, a new team, their first year, you know, on the road, what a success.
Yep, marvellous success. And of course, last year's winner also riding for Green Edge, Matt Goss, hung in there right the way towards the end. What can you say about Liquigas, Sean? Did they pick the wrong man?
Well, I think tactically they did it well with Nibali going in the attack. Unfortunately, Cancellara was able to react and get across to them. And we see Peter Sagan was in a perfect position, winning the sprint of the group for 4th place. But you know, unfortunately, it didn't come back together, because Sagan would have been, you know, the strongest. We see him overtaking Debenkop in the sprint quite comfortably.
Yeah, absolutely. He looked very comfortable indeed. He's definitely a coming rider and still young as well. So we just have to see how he can keep progressing. But Nibali clearly coming out of Tirreno Adriatico slightly less fresh than Peter Sagan. Marvellous win by Simon Gerrans, and he just managed to read the move perfectly. It was Nibali who launched the attack when they saw themselves within spitting distance of Angel Madrazo. It was Vincenzo Nibali who shot off, and immediately Gerrans went with him. And when those two went, Sean, Cancellara thought, right, now we've got to go.
Well, I think it was also, you know, the time to go. If you were capable of doing it, if Cancellara made the calculation, well, if he hang back there with the legs of Sagan, well, then he knows that it's going to be difficult in the sprint. If he comes with a Nibali, for example, he knew, and I think with Gerrans as well, he reckoned that he could take him, because he continued on riding, then started to wind up the sprint. He thought he had both of them in a bit of difficulty, but Gerrans was, you know, still a little bit in reserve there, and took the sprint quite well, and, you know, by what, a bike length?
Yep, something like that. Gerrans on paper would be the slightly quicker sprinter. We seem to forget that Cancellara is very good indeed. when it comes to going quickly. Philippe Gilbert, quick shot of him. Lost out big style today, Sean, because he wasn't capable of even contesting towards the end, having been caught up in a crash along with Danilo Di Luca and so forth. Just put him back. Just too many seconds to make up for him.
Yes, well, when you crash on the suppressor, as he did just before the descent, it's very difficult to come back. You know, you lose 20 seconds, but then they make the descent so quickly, as we see, and then the flatter section leading to Poggio, unless you have a number of teammates, a minimum of 3 or 4 to get you back in there is impossible. And you know, Philippe Gilbert with the BMC, they decided to work another tactic, because we did see them right into the Poggio, which quite a number of their riders. So you know, within the team, I suppose they had other guys they thought capable of winning here.
Riders making their way down into the bus area. Great, I think tactically, again, Sean, I think you're right about Liquigas. They played it very well. Agnoli did a very fine job in being a hare and being sent out there to attack. It was Rabobank who had to do an awful lot of work to keep it shut down for Matti Breschel, and that aided everybody else's pursuit. And then it was indeed, here we go, just looking back on it, this is Nibali goes, and look at the way Gerrans is right on the wheel. He sees it immediately and goes. That's a very strong duo. Here is Angel Madrazo, who's already beginning to suffer, because he has that head bobbing style anyway, but it's all over for him. Rabobank still chasing a little, and Cancellara sees that they're not going to catch them if he doesn't go with them. Nibali puts in a very, very big effort to try and get away here. Looks like Sasha Modelo, who's doing some chasing as well. The elastic starting to snap towards the end of the descent of the Poggio, in fact. You could almost guarantee, Sean, couldn't you, that as soon as they saw Cancellara coming up to them, they'd let him go through and do some of the work.
Yes, and he did it immediately. He just got onto the wheel of the two leaders and took it up right away and continued on pulling. And I think he was the life of the breakaway on the Poggio itself, but also the descent. He made a very good descent. Cancellara on the flat section, he was the one who did the big amount of work. And you know, when you find yourself out front with Cancellara, you know, you're sure that it's going to be a big chance of succeeding. And Cancellara was, unfortunately, he could see the group coming quickly, and he was making the calculation just to keep it going enough to hold off, but in the sprint, Simon Gerrans was that little bit too fast for him.
Third spot then for Vincenzo Nibali. You can see Simon Gerrans moves to the top of the World Tour rankings. Third spot for Nibali. Looks like a tad tired, one has to say. A little bit disappointed, but he just didn't have the legs, really. Couldn't come round. It looked like he was going to launch an attack at some point with a little bit of a way to go, but he'd used it up on the road on the attack on the Poggio. Fabian Cancellara, after a win in this race back a few years ago in 2008, takes second spot. And he's always a marked man. I mean, once he goes on the attack, he knows that if a couple of riders of any speed or quality go with him, they're going to wait for him as much as possible and make him do a lot of the work. The win goes to the Australian national champion, though. Mike, I think, by the way, before we see Simon Gerrans come up, I think the man on the floor for Omega Pharma was Matteo Trentin. It certainly wasn't Bonan, as far as I can see. Far too clean-shaven. Well, Cancellara can't be too disappointed with that. He's contested the sprint all the way to the line. I thought they were going to get slightly more of an advantage on the descent, but even so, I mean, it was great riding by Katusha to try and limit them. But here's our winner, Simon Gerrans. He's won stages in the Giro. We've seen him in the Tour. He's been around for a number of years now. I think the first time we saw him was riding for AG2R, chasing like crazy, I think, into Carcassonne, I think was the finish, behind Paolo Salvoldelli. And just being ridden off the wheel by Salvoldelli, who was a much more senior rider in those days. But as an AG2R rider, even then, Sean, you could see he was a very aggressive rider who liked to race.
Yes, he always been aggressive, and you know, he's been coming, I think, maybe had a little bit of a downtime on occasions, but since the time he's been with AG2R, improving slowly every year and winning some great races, and this is by far the greatest one of his career. One he will always remember, your first classic, you know, and you know, the Milan San Remo, it's something that he will just always be in his mind for the rest of his life.
Absolutely, terrific ride. Considering that a lot of it was done by himself. He had some teammates around, but it didn't, essentially Green Edge didn't ride as a team. Not in the same way as some of the others did. Well, La Primavera is won by Simon Gerrans, and quite a strong tailwind on the run-in as well. And as Sean was saying, you remember this all his life. And he won it in the Australian National Champions jersey to boot. Two national champions on the podium. This is our finish, and there we go down. Well, just having a quick look at the riders. Still, we didn't get to see it too much, but I'm pretty certain it isn't Bonan. Now, you'll hang, draw and quarter me if it is, of course, but it didn't look like him when he was sat up against the barriers. In the sprint, the best of the rest was John Degenkolb. That's very good for him. And Peter Sagan able to come around the outside of him towards the end. But Degenkolb, I wouldn't have expected perhaps to be in the mix straight away. Here we go. I thought we were going to see that again. Terrific win for Simon Gerrans, and that'll be very, very popular. Congratulations to all of those people in Australia who watch us here on Eurosport World. 2 in a row for you guys. That's good going. The world champion, as opposed to the Australian national champion, the world champion, Mark Cavendish, just off form today, just really suffering. Here's Daniel Lloyd and Fabian Cancellara. Hopefully we'll be able to hear it. Not sending the sound, unfortunately. Daniel, of course, now riding back in the UK for IG Sigma Sports and working for the host broadcasters out there, as well as doing work for Eurosport now as well, which is good. And doing a fine job too, so I understand. Well, a marvellous win for Simon Gerrans. Remember, Monday we start again with cycling Tour of Catalonia live here with myself and Brian Smith from Sean and I. Congratulations to Simon. Bye for now.